Clay's Corner, the 2015 running back class. I'm Russell Clay. I'm a staff writer over at FantasyGuru.com, and I think we have a great episode today for you. We're going to be talking about the 2015 running back class, a few of the players that I found unique and exciting coming into that year. We're going to be talking about the macro factors that made this a very exciting class, and we're going to use this to set our feet to evaluate some of the future classes. So I think there's going to be a lot of value in this video. If you agree or find anything valuable about this video, please give it a like and also subscribe. Other than that, let's get into it. All right. I love this class. Let me just start off by saying, in terms of rookie drafts in my lifetime, I was looking forward to Melvin Gordon and Todd Gurley entering the NFL for a long time, since both of them were freshmen in 2012, 2013. So this was a class that's near and dear to my heart. As you can see, there's a bunch of guys to talk about. Not many were actually drafted in this group, but the quality at the top was very high. David Johnson was sort of that Antonio Gibson before Antonio Gibson. So he was kind of viewed as maybe almost like a slot receiver or like this outside third down running back, except he was 230 pounds or whatever. So, he was kind of one that was tougher to see, but Devonta Coleman, Ajayi, Duke Johnson, these were guys we were all kind of looking forward to for a few years. So, we had 2 first-round picks after years of not having anyone go in the first round. I think that's another factor we need to talk about every time we review a draft class. What rounds are these players going in? How many high pedigree players are getting drafted? And what are we looking at here? What does the NFL think of this class? So if we look at it that way, right? 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, 1, 2, 3, 4 third-rounders. So, 8 guys, right? And that's kind of how I go into every class. There's 8 guys. We had a few guys from the later rounds that made some noise. Actually, Carlos Williams made some noise his rookie year. Ajayi had a big year. We'll talk about that. Mike Davis kind of had a little resurgence the last couple years. Jeremy Langford had a nice rookie year. But, when you look back at this class, much like every class, the later round guys throw a few punches here and there, but eventually this all consolidates into the higher pedigree guys. So that's what we have to start with. So Gurley and Gordon, those were the 2, some people weren't very high on Melvin Gordon, and I feel like that's followed him to the NFL. He's had a very productive career, 8,300 yards from scrimmage. But, I don't think the general consensus really loves him, and that's been that way since he was at Wisconsin. Gurley obviously flamed out quickly, but yeah. So let's just get into some of these guys. Let's talk about Todd Gurley. This is where, you see something quick, and it's like, okay, that's all I needed to see. We saw Todd Gurley, his true freshman season, absolutely annihilate college football. 2012, he finished his 18-year-old season with 1,500 yards from scrimmage and 17 touchdowns. He also had a kick return touchdown against Buffalo that I'll always cherish. Just a really, really special dude. And he had that 37 receptions in his second year in just 10 games to signal that he was a great receiver, which he ended up being in the NFL. Struggled with a major injury and then, kind of had a lackluster senior year, but was truly one of the best running backs I've seen come along in the 20 years I've kind of been watching college football and NFL. So just a really, really special dude that does not come along very often. We've had some other guys since him that have kind of, the Saquon Barkleys, I know he hasn't quite worked out, but he was probably a better prospect. And then, you go through the Christian McCaffreys, the Leonard Fournettes. We had a really special run of years with running backs. The next guy I think that's like this is Bijan Robinson. We can take a look at him. This guy is Todd Gurley-esque with his versatility in production, his elusiveness in the open field, his receiving ability. He's running wide receiver routes, so that's the next big running back prospect. He's not going to be out till 2023, but the point is, with guys like this, guys like Todd Gurley, we know about them pretty early in their college career. They can't hide for too long when they're that special. Melvin Gordon, another guy who had a pretty excellent college career. Didn't really do much in his first couple years on campus. He was really small when he first got to Wisconsin. Probably in the 190s, I would say, as freshman, and redshirt freshman year. But this year was really special for him. He averaged 10 yards per carry on 62 attempts, and it was just so clear there was something here, just so special. And we got to see that in 2 more years, 1,600 yards and 12 touchdowns and 7.8 yards per carry. Very similar to the production Jonathan Taylor put up at his time at Wisconsin. 15th pick to the Chargers, and was just an excellent, excellent running back prospect. Just everything you look for. The size, the speed, at least size adjusted athleticism-wise, he definitely had, positives there. And just the durability. I mean, he's had some injuries in the NFL, but he's also been very durable like he was in college. So really special guy here too, and it'd been a few years since we'd had any really special guys like this. So next one, maybe a guy people don't know if they're a little newer to the NFL, but TJ Yeldon actually had 1,000 yards from scrimmage in his rookie year with Jacksonville, but he was a very good running back at Alabama. Not great, he wasn't Mark Ingram, he wasn't Derrick Henry, he wasn't that caliber, but he was very good. And he showed solid receiving ability at Alabama despite being in committees. He's a big guy, 6'2", 220. And the Jaguars made him a second-round pick. I mean, I didn't love the prospect, especially compared to Gurley and Gordon, but he certainly held his own. Didn't end up working out for him in the NFL for a multitude of reasons, but he was on some very mediocre Jaguars and Buffalo Bills teams. So people liked him. They didn't love him as a prospect, and that's kind of how I felt as well, and that's kind of what his career ended up with. A few productive years. 2018, he did all right, but 6-year career, 2 decent years, a kind of bunch of committee years, and yeah, that kind of makes sense. That kind of makes sense for what he ended up turning into. Ameer Abdullah, this is where I'd say buyer beware on guys who stay till their senior year. Melvin Gordon did stay 4 years, but he was very young and he needed to grow into his body. Ameer Abdullah was kind of see what you get the entire time. He didn't really evolve as a player. And that's why when you look at this profile, you say, okay, look at that immense production profile the last 3 years. But it's not like Melvin and Gurley. It was not the same. He was a nice, I think in terms of his career outcomes in the NFL, I think injuries just kind of took over. I actually think he would have been a very solid, 200 touch per year guy. And that's kind of what was given to him when healthy with Detroit his first couple years. But the injuries just piled up, and then, he's good on special teams. He just kind of found a different variety of roles in the NFL, and then kind of became more of a value to an NFL team than an actual fantasy asset. So all all signs point to him being a bust from a fantasy and a rookie draft perspective, but overall was, certainly an interesting prospect. He had the elusiveness, he had the pass catching ability, but when you get guys that are below 200 pounds and not really highly athletic, that's where you kind of can run into trouble. So, he was a nice player, but didn't really work out from a NFL perspective. Here's a guy that Tevin Coleman, kind of was not a featured guy till his final year. He only played 3 years, so that's important to note. But really, really showed that explosiveness and what we ended up seeing at the Atlanta Falcons when he was optimized by Kyle Shanahan. We saw this burst, this ability, this incredible production per touch. Tevin Coleman was a special guy. Now, did he turn into a featured running back in the NFL? No, but he did have 3 straight very productive seasons in Atlanta with Devonta Freeman as sort of the highly explosive chess piece. So, again, with a running back class, you're going to get a high variance of outcomes, and that's what we got here with Tevin Coleman. We got a variance of outcomes, which his variance was, I'm pretty good. And I think we kind of hit our ceiling with him here in these 3 years. He was a very good real-life player. He was a RB2 in fantasy, and we got to see his explosiveness be optimized in the NFL. So it was really valuable. I mean, look at this receiving production in those 3 years. 13.6 yards per reception in 2016, 421 receiving yards. Just a really unique chess piece that was kind of a nightmare for opposing linebackers for a few years. We got to see him used for a bit in New York this year, and San Francisco, he was just injured the whole time. So kind of a frustrating end to his career, but I do think we got to see it for a few years. And if you picked him in your rookie draft, 111, 201, in that, that type of range, I think you're happy with those 3 years you got from him. So overall, solid career, Duke Johnson, I feel like we could have gotten more here. Duke Johnson kind of had that same 3-year run like Tevin did, where he was on some really bad Browns teams. I guess that wasn't like Tevin, but we did get to see Duke Johnson in a role where, they did utilize his receiving ability. He was kind of the best player on some poor teams. But really exciting receiving prospect. Electric open field ability, really special on kick returns in his freshman year, and then they kind of took him off there. But, a third-round guy. Again, Tevin Coleman was a third-round guy. You're going to get these types of careers, special players, but maybe not featured backs. So we never saw Duke Johnson crest 200 touches. I think there's probably reasons behind the scenes for that, maybe injury stuff. I don't quite know, but there's probably a reason why NFL coaches did not give him a fully featured role. So another nice player, but a third-round pick. So we're kind of seeing them hit that ceiling there at around 1,000 yards from scrimmage, 1,100 yards from scrimmage. David Johnson, just a monster for a few years there. Then injuries hit, but that's where, I was ready for Antonio Gibson this time around because I learned with David Johnson. I didn't really trust David Johnson because he wasn't from a Power 5 school. And see, this is the transparency you get here. Loved Melvin, loved Gurley. However, David Johnson, I was kind of bearish on because he didn't play for a Division I school. Kind of had a weird prospect profile where he's more of a receiver than a full runner, and I wasn't sure how that was going to translate. But he tested out really well, had great size, did have a nice production profile, and top 3-round pick. So when a guy like Antonio Gibson tests off the charts athletically and then comes into the NFL as a third-round pick and shifts to running back, you're like, oh, well, maybe this is David Johnson again. And I think through 2 years it kind of has been. So that's how we can learn from our mistakes or learn from prior classes. You look at a guy like David Johnson and you say, oh, so maybe this is in someone's range of outcomes for the future. So there you go. Yeah, and then we have Mike Davis, who's, broke out in, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, year 6 of his career, he broke out. Yeah, that's a weird one. I don't know how we're going to predict that. He was an all right prospect at South Carolina, 4th-round pick, not very athletic. So kind of a all right player. But, stuck around, put up a good year. If you had him that year, great. But yeah, that's what we're looking at there. And then Jay Ajayi, this is one where you're allowed to be high on a guy like Jay Ajayi, especially if you watched his tape at Boise State or evaluated him and really came to like him. But this is a cautionary tale of guys fall to the 5th round for a reason, especially when there's a lot of talent. Why is that guy falling to the 5th round? Jay Ajayi fell to the 5th round because of medical concerns, and that came to fruition. So we saw the 1,400 yards from scrimmage season, but then it fell off completely. And that's because of his knee. He had knee problems, and it wasn't a talent issue. Jay Ajayi was a monster in college, receiving down back, just electric in every part of the field. It wasn't Division I, but really special guy for a mid-major school. So I would have said a 2nd or 3rd round pick if it were just based on talent, but people like to give NFL teams a lot of shit, and as the years go on, I become a little more skeptical of some of the decisions these NFL teams make. Tutu Atwell. But I think for the most part they do their due diligence, and I think they got this one right. Miami got 2 years out of him, which was great. 2.5 years, I guess you could say. But it was over after that. And I guess that's worth a 5th round pick. That might even be worth, a 4th or a 3rd round pick. But it was a ticking time bomb. And so that's what we have to be aware of. So thank you all for tuning in. As I said, if you like this video, please give it a like. And also, if you're interested in this type of stuff or found any value in this video, please subscribe to the channel where you'll find more of that. So as always, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time.